You're listening to the Battle Belongs podcast, where real stories meet unwavering truth. This show is a space for bold conversations, powerful testimonies, and unshakable faith. In a culture at war with truth, we're here to remind you, the battle doesn't belong to us. The battle belongs to the Lord.
Welcome back to the Battle Belongs podcast. It has been
2 months.
2 months? I thought 3. Feels like we took the summer off, but for good reason. We are currently in what I call the spare bedroom.
And what I call it the battle room.
The battle room.
Or the war
AKA
room.
the podcast studio at Coleton's new house. Doesn't feel new if you've been keeping up with him on social media. It's been a whirlwind.
It's been traumatic.
Something that was supposed to be so
peaceful and happy.
Yeah, such a
great time turned into disaster after disaster.
But
snakes.
We're happy we're here.
We are.
Yeah, we made it. There are trials that come, but you kept getting up, and you kept having to kill a mouse, a snake, a door frame.
Locked myself out 3 days after I bought
But
the
did we
house.
really lock ourselves out?
I thought I did. I didn't know how to open my windows yet.
Right.
They
Anyways,
were unlocked.
It was a good time driving to Home Depot together.
Yes.
So, but there has been a recent episode that's come out, and it seems to be, I thought, honestly, the feedback that we were going to get was going to be like 50-50, positive, negative. Seems to be very responsive in a positive manner.
Yeah.
So let's just talk about it. If you don't know what I'm referring to, we were talking about Coleton's testimony, something I've known about now for, it's been over
a year.
Probably just at a year, though, when you think about it, because when we met, it was a few weeks after we met. And
it was like last May.
Yeah. So it's something that you have shared with the world now. There was a handful of people in your life that you're like, this is my story. Here's what you know. Now it's out to the public. And I guess the question that we should start with is why? Why share it with the entire world?
Well, I'll get to like the main important reason why in a second, but how can we have people on this podcast and want them to share their story if I'm not willing to share my entire testimony first?
That's good.
So there was that. And then I felt like a lot of people knew part of me, and a lot of my close friends around here really just wanted to know the full story. And I felt like while I wasn't living in that anymore, it felt like I was still living a secret life because my past is still part of my life.
Yeah.
And it's still part of my big testimony. So when I was talking about my testimony, the only thing I really talked about was the porn addiction. And that was it. But people knew there was more, and they kept asking. They kept trying to pry and dig and try to figure it out. And I felt like it would be easier to do one big video and just release it like that instead of having to sit down and, while I'll still sit down and share the story anytime that anyone asks, the full long version I wanted to just like post. But I'd say the main reason is honestly just God has been so good to me over the past few years, and why would I not want to share the grace, mercy, and love of Jesus, of radically changing my life from something that I was destroying myself in to then radically changing it to something where I'm thriving now in life. And I can't imagine just keeping that a secret. Like once you know something, when you have something that is just so good, you should want to tell the world about it. And I feel like I just come to a point where I was at peace with everything, and I felt like it was just time to share with the world what Jesus done in my life.
Yeah, and I think when I think of your story, a lot of times, like in just the build up to finally telling the whole truth, it reminds me of John's first letter, 1 John, where he talks about like kind of like one foot in the world and one foot in light. And it's not like you were like kind of living two separate lives now with the testimony. It was more or less like half of you was hidden. And I'd say a major piece of you was hidden. But now I think it goes to show the radical transformation that Jesus does have. Because I think in America especially, we have made Jesus out to be this like thing that we can possess but not surrender to. And your story is one example of what it truly looks like to completely and utterly say, I am crucified with Christ. So yeah.
Well, to the whole surrender part, like I grew up in the church. I grew up ever since I was about 2 months old, I think, going to church. So I heard the gospel Sunday after Sunday after Sunday, every single week. And I knew who Jesus was, and I knew Jesus' love. And I did the whole prayer thing at Awana, which is like a weekly VBS type thing. What I thought was like saving me, and we could argue whether or not, but I don't think I got saved in that moment. But because of that, I thought I was just able to live a life however I wanted to, because I thought Jesus, died for all of us. He died for our sins. That meant I could just live a life of pleasure, live a life of fun, live a life that was so selfish and so all about me that it was literally destroying every piece of my life behind the scenes. And so the whole surrender part was something that I didn't want to do. I'm a very controlling person. Not necessarily like I have to control every aspect of everyone, but in my own personal life, I love control. I because I don't want to be able to have to blame someone else for something that goes wrong. I just want to be able to, take responsibility. That's why I'm not good at team sports. If you play pickleball with me, you know that I like to take control of the court, but that's just like my personality. So surrendering and all of that, it was a foreign concept to me. But when I finally realized that I can't do my life on my own, and I needed something bigger and better and greater than me to just guide me, that's when I understood salvation for what it was. And it was full surrender to Jesus. And that was the radical change that I have had over the past 2-3 years. And
it's been evident. Now, on that token, though, especially with your role in politics, more than anything, you play a crucial role in your community, in your local church, but also like you work for a major organization. You're a political guru. You're really well known on social media. So there are two sides to the coin here. You have people that love you, support you. They're encouraged by this. There's a flip side of people that are just hate you for who you are, what you represent, what you came out of. How do you deal with such a thing, especially like you're young, and so especially in our generation, anxiety and depression, all those things are kind of escalating. How do you deal with it?
It's been a change, because growing up dealing with it all, it was what was crippling me mentally. I shared in my story that I was being bullied very early on just for how I looked, because of how skinny I was. And that was just really mentally draining for me, that I would hear it day after day after day. And then as I started to get involved in different things and started to like voice my opinion out, whether it was Christian things, whether it's political things, people really start to either love me or hate me. And there was a full divide. And we'll talk about like why the whole gay thing really affected me in a second. But the criticism that I just constantly got just put me at my knees almost every single day. So that was like one of the big things I was worried about releasing this video, is like, what are people going to think? Because all the haters back then always called me gay. They always assumed that I was doing stuff. They happened to be right about part of it. So when it was revealed that I was doing these things, how were they going to escalate and everything? And I think over the past couple days of releasing this, my mind has really shifted from who cares? It used to be like, well, what if everyone cares? What if everyone thinks that I'm this horrible person? They don't want to be friends with me. But it's like, who cares? Because I realized the people that was bashing me, and it's been very few people on social media bashing me over this. They are losers. They're legit losers. I mean, when you look at them and you look at who they are, they have nothing going for them in life. So why would I care what these people think? The only people that I should care about what they think are the people who are close around me, who see my everyday life, not these people who live 8 hours away from me that don't know who I am. And honestly, the only person I should care about what they think is Jesus himself. And I think that's been a very peaceful mindset of like, they have nothing going for them. So the only thing that I should do is just pray for them in this moment, because they could eventually see how my life has radically changed. And then hopefully one day their life can have a radical change itself.
Yeah, absolutely. When you talked to, let's just kind of like go through some of this stuff that you had mentioned. One is that you never had an attraction towards the same sex. Things happened, but at the same time, there was never that attraction. And we hear a lot of times, from people that do, lean that way. We hear them talk about this idea that I was born this way.
Yeah.
How would you respond to somebody with that?
Well, let's break down the first part of me not actually being attracted, because a lot of people will hear that and think, yeah, right, you're just full of it. You're just trying to cover up. But like, why would I need to cover that up right now? I mean, I've exposed myself in my life, in my past. Why would I need to cover it up? I wouldn't gain or lose anything. Because I can go back and pinpoint the exact moment when it all started. And it happened from, I wouldn't say like childhood trauma, but the lack of the strong Christian family unit led to me figuring out things on my own. And when I became addicted to pornography, I was hearing things at school and then looking up the questions online. And that's what led to watching what I was watching. And then hating myself, I was looking at other men of who I wanted to look like. And that was the type of person that I wanted to look like. So then I would get the attention from them and engage in that. So it was never an attraction of like, I liked them. There's a difference between attraction, being attracted to someone, and recognizing someone being attractive. You know, like despite what your wife says, you're an attractive person, but I'm not attracted to you, you know? And I think that's something that people don't really understand or grasp that concept, right? So I was just really attracted to myself and what the vision of myself that I really wanted to look like. And that was the thing that I just really couldn't get over. So when people hear that I wasn't attracted, they're like, yeah, BS, basically. I'm like, but you don't understand where it all started. That's why I kind of like released the full detailed video of how it started. But to your question of what would I say to someone who might say that they're born that way? Because we hear it all the time that, you know, God made me this way. You'll hear people say that God made them with same-sex attraction. And I think it could be the case that they're born with same-sex attraction problems, because you see people all the time born with different mental disabilities. You see people born with physical abnormalities, and that's not, I would say, the way that God's perfect design would be. So even if they were born that way, Jesus tells us very clearly in the gospel, we have to be born again and die to ourselves. And that's something that people can find freedom from. They can find freedom by dying to themselves, finding new life in Christ, and restarting it all over again. And he can take that attraction away. I firmly believe it, and I've seen it from other people.
Yeah, it's John 7 too. What you're talking about, Nicodemus, Jesus. Nicodemus is we later learn becomes a follower of Jesus, but in this moment in time, he is basically presenting himself and saying, like, what do you mean you must be born again? And Jesus is talking about, like, you were born once physically through your mother, and now you must be spiritually born again. And there's confusion there, but what you just described, it has to be, regardless of where you side with, am I born this way? You can't be born this way. At the end of the day, it is an inward transformation. That's why baptism is so powerful in the testimony of the believer, because it is an outward transformation of an inward faith that takes place. And so it has to start with the heart. No matter what, like, the heart is deceitful above all things. And so at the end of the day, you have to look at it if you trace it back, and there's typically a moment in time where something took place, whether it's a absent father, it's abuse, it is comments or bullying. Those things can lead us to do things that aren't truly us. And so finding yourself is ultimately finding Jesus. And that, I think, is such a powerful tool that God used in your story to point others to him. And that's what, like, it's so cool to see that. And a lot of people, they say, man, I wish I had a cool testimony like Coleton. But what would you say to that?
I wish I had the testimony of like Brooke Huggins. She was a Christian from very little, and she lived a life that was very, faithfulness and sinless as much as mine, and that's that's the testimony I wish I had. But I'm glad that God's given me the testimony that I have, that I can use it to help others in different ways, because maybe other people wouldn't be able to handle the things that I went through.
What would you say since this this true reality, this repentance that took place, what has been your toughest challenge since then?
I think early on, the toughest challenge itself was putting away everything that I was like living in.
To death.
Yeah. Yes. Because while, like we said, that I wasn't attracted, I was still wanting the pleasure of everything.
Right.
And when I wanted it, how I wanted it, whenever. So that was really hard when you're addicted to something and just trying to put it away. You know, a lot of people think that once you become a Christian, God just like,
yep.
And while some of that is true for some people, it wasn't for me.
Yep.
While some things were put to death basically immediately, some things I continue to struggle with. So like the porn addiction, it took a while, but what was different was I knew what I was doing was wrong, and I had that full conviction now. So like growing up and going through all of this, I had like some slight feeling in the back of my head of like, am I really doing the right thing? Am I really doing the wrong thing? It doesn't really matter. But now, after I fully surrendered, there was a strong conviction every time of don't watch that. Don't talk to this person. Don't engage in that. So I think that was like the hardest struggle. Thankfully, like I don't really struggle with really any of that anymore. What I do continue to still struggle with is like the whole surrender thing. So finding like my purpose and things like that, because I still want to live like my dreams and goals out. But over the past year, just being around people who build me up the right way, I'm feeling like I'm seeing a purpose that I never thought I would have before, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. There's a lot to say about that word surrender, especially for some of our viewers, just saying. But I do want to follow up. You just mentioned that, like the whole idea of the people you've been around in the past year. And that was one of the questions I had for you is, what has community meant to you during this journey? Like having people that you can confide in, people that you can go to.
I'm not going to cry. I'm trying not to cry already. So I never had that before. So growing up, I went to youth group and everything, but it wasn't like my friends or anything like that. So, and then when I was going through all of this, the people that I did have around me who claimed to be Christians were encouraging me to stay and just like do what made me happy. And that's where I realized now that these people aren't really Christians, because if they were really Christians, they wouldn't want me to live out my truth. They would want me to live out his truth and the real truth and the only truth. And so being surrounded by people like you, Garrett, Raina, just people who hold me accountable and try to make me a better person. And just the fact that I'm surrounded by Christians and I get to do life with them and just watch. Most of my friends here are married or in relationships. So I get to watch the interactions and learn from that and grow from that. And the people who are parents here, I get to learn of what real biblical parenthood is like. And, just being embraced by people who actually love on me and want me to succeed in life instead of just being happy is everything that I could have ever asked for. And I think it's something that every Christian needs, and it's something that just everyone deserves in general, just to be surrounded by people who genuinely love them for who they are and who Jesus wants them to be.
Yeah, I think what I hope too in your story is that people, because I run into a lot of things, like community is a huge word for us that we use. We talk about it all the time. But what I run into a lot of times is people on the other side that just state, they're like, man, I do want that. I desire that. But it's so hard for me because I don't think people love the real me.
Mm-hmm.
And my question is always like, you can't blame somebody from the past for like the here and now, like the people that God has now placed in your life. You cannot compare those people. And so it's so fruitful to hear like a story like yours, a testimony like yours, where you are confident to share that and then say, people have like seen me and they love me.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing I take away from your story. But I do want to hear from you. What message would you want like all viewers to get out of you sharing this story?
I mean, it's a double-sided coin because for the people who might be struggling in the same ways that I did, I want them to know that there's freedom from it. There's freedom in any way, whether they were attracted or they weren't attracted in the sense of my story, where they feel like they were born that way. Any sin struggle that you're going through, any addiction can be put to death, and there is a better life out there for you if you find Christ. I'm proof of it. I've never been more happy in my life. I've never been more joyful in my life than over the past couple years of fully giving my life to Christ and then walking with other people. Mm-hmm. But then also, just to anyone in general, is just be bold, be courageous, and stand firm on what you believe in, what you've went through. Don't try to hide the past. If the past is truly in the past, what makes a difference if it comes out now? Because I think I said this to you the other day, that sin that is brought out of darkness into light just can't dwell in the darkness anymore. And that's what it was still doing to me up until last year, when I finally started to tell you. The only people who knew about my story were the people who were there with me going through it. And it just still, while I was out of it, it was still like gut wrenching to me because I didn't have the people around me to lift me up. So just being bold and courageous and finding the people that you can trust, and just explaining, this is my story. And I think we all have one, whether it's good or bad.
It's just, I think, too many Christians live in the shallow end. Yeah, it's just time to dive in. Mm-hmm. And I'm grateful for you. Your story is Romans 1:16. I am unashamed of the gospel, and grateful for it. Grateful for you. I mean, I cannot believe, like, it is so awesome to see God's sovereignty on full display. Even today, reading, I think it was Romans, I think it was 1:7-20. I was reading it, and it just talks about like God's presence, God's like the existence of God is on full display, and we can see it. And I think it's so awesome that He uses stories, through people to point us to that. And so like I can't express enough like how much I love you, and I'm so proud of you. And that's all. That's the only questions I had. So anything you want to?
Well, real quick to your point of the Romans 1:7-20, I was reading it last night, and then we're going through the 40 discipleship book for anyone who doesn't know. I think the descriptions and stuff that was going with it was, don't get over your salvation. And that's something that I've talked about before. And just because I've released this video now that everyone knows, that doesn't mean I'm just going to stop talking about what God has done in my life. And it's so good to just constantly like remind yourself of where God has brought you from. It's so healthy to sit back and reflect. So like anytime I hear Battle Belongs, it just puts me back into the moment of where God just picked me up from the darkness, met me where I was. He chased me. He came after me. He left the 99 for the one, and I was the dumb sheep that was walking away. Broke my legs and brought me back. Yes, both.
Yeah, because you're hard-headed.
Yes, and then to your point of community and jumping into the deep end, I feel like I didn't necessarily jump into the deep end. I was pushed in the deep end, and I'm so grateful for it, because I told y'all when I got here to Langston and everything, I desperately needed the friends. I desperately wanted Christian friends, and I wanted that community, but I didn't want to go all in. I didn't want everything that came with it. I didn't want the accountability. I didn't want people checking up on me, and I wanted to be the person who was in the back row at that church. Yeah, but also like not have friends, be involved a little bit, but not be where I am now. And then y'all found this video of me, and the whole church was talking about me, and Bruce found me, and it's just a whole God thing of
it found us. Honestly, like I was like, I feel like I've seen this guy, and then on like my feed, I'm like, there's no way. I think I messaged you that. I was like, dude, you're from the video.
Yes. Like, unfortunately, that is me.
But also, like, on that note, you were like, I want to be in the back row. And now we live 7 minutes apart. Yeah. It's just like, it's so fun. It is exactly what I believe Acts 2 is, the church being the church, and like doing life together. I think that was one of my goals, and I'm so glad that like it's just unfolding like from God's perspective, like He's allowing it to take place, and I think it's vital.
Yeah, well, I was talking to my Nana yesterday. We went out to lunch, and we were just talking about the whole testimony thing, and this is the first time she heard the full story. What she knew was, for all I know, is that it ended the day that I told her about the situation. She was the first person I went and told, because I was having a mental breakdown. So she thought the relationship ended there, and it didn't really continue, but it continued for about 4 more months after that. So we were just talking, and I said something along the lines of, it's so crazy how this story played out, because one decision in my life could have rerouted me completely, whether it was me going to West Virginia, not Coastal Carolina, whether it was me going to law school and not going into politics, because I was dead set on going to law school. I was going to go to the University of Georgia for law if I got in. And we talked about this with Ashley Newbert. I had someone speak over me, come up to me, and she says, I don't ever see you going to law school. I see you surrounded by people in Washington, D.C. with powerful politicians. And I was like, you're out of your mind, lady. And it ended up happening. Yeah. Or if I didn't go to the Phil Wickham concert down here, would I have ever seen Langston? If I didn't go to the Republican Women's Club meeting, would I have met the family that I saw the post on Facebook that brought me here? So just these different decisions of God's sovereignty is just crazy to me, and so thankful for it.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up, going back to another message, what I want people to know is you've had people ask you, like, is Coleton gay? And it's something I really don't get irritated about it anymore, because of all that I went through. I know who I am. I know what I went through, and I know what was true. But the fact that people question someone's sexuality like that just because they're not the most masculine looking person in the world, they're not the most masculine built person, mannerisms. I talked to you about this. I'm skinny, and my wrists, I talk with my hands. So when my wrist goes like that, everyone immediately like picks up on that, and they're like, oh, is he? I'm like, no, how does this even correlate? I'm a guy who likes style and fashion. I don't like to look like I just walked out of the streets of New York City under a bridge somewhere. I like to look like...
call that style.
Well, that's not a style that I want to look. I want to be put together. I like hygiene. I don't like to stink or anything like that. And that's just things that people pick up on now. And somehow we made it in today's culture where that's gay. And so when people ask that, I'm just like, take a second and like think about it for just reflect on that question before you ask it, and get to know the person, I'd say, first.
I think we talked about this summer, the thoughtlessness is what comes to mind. Like there's not a lot of thought in our thinking, which I know that sounds like a dumb saying, but it's true. We speak before we think, and we have thoughtless thoughts.
Yeah.
And I think it's because we are constantly brain rotting and just not processing emotions, not processing people. And it is going to show like the enemy can use absolutely anything to turn us both against each other as well as against the reality of who God is.
Yeah.
So,
and also here I am sitting with my legs crossed too. So that's another thing that people really pick up on. Wait till they see me like out getting a pedicure, because I played sports all my life, and there's nothing better than getting a pedicure.
I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
That's all I got.
That's all I got. I'm glad to be back in a new studio.
Super thankful to be back, and I'm even more thankful because football is just a couple weeks away.
The picks are coming back again.
So,
what's your overall take on football? Who's going to win the national championship?
I can tell you my hot take right now is Illinois should not be ranked 13 in the country. National championship.
Oh, please.
I am a
You're an idiot. That's what you are.
Fan. And I have to stick with my boys. I don't really have a take, though, like a big take besides, like, I'm a Penn State fan. They're hyping us up. I tell myself I'm not going to believe the hype, and here I am, number 3 in the country. Sounds nice. So
Yeah, put them really high on that pedestal just for them to just fall.
Yeah, maybe I should pick like them to finish like 7th in the Big Ten, but we'll do an episode too where we include our 12-team playoffs.
I just asked you who you think is going to be the national champion, and here we are going.
Who's yours? Texas,
Alabama.
Another toxic fan.
Actually, Ohio State for the fan in the room.
It's not true. It's not happening.
She needs a camera on her. Anyway, glad to be back. We're not missing weeks anymore. We are getting this structure.
We are back, baby.
We are back for good.
Look out for the Utah vlog, though, in October, too.
Oh, gosh. We are going to Utah for the BYU West Virginia game. Very excited. Dragging Jordan along. Poor girl.
We're treating it like her graduation gift.
Right.
From her master's degree.
And then we're leaving her there. Anyway, that is it. Thank you all for listening. Thank you guys so much for the support that you've been giving me, whether you've reached out, texted me directly, messaged me, the people I've seen in person. I definitely needed the motivation over the past couple days. So I can't be more grateful for that. Can't be more grateful for you. Can't be more grateful for you, Raina, here in the podcast studio, running the show. Any last words?
See you next time.